And the Ministry of Education, and through its main implementing agency for its policies, we have the Ghana Education Service, that is for basic and senior high schools at that level, has indicated that the teachers would be only put in a safe atmosphere for teaching and learning to be able to go on. And it is instructive for all of us to get the indication that during the President-elect's address, he said all levels of education should admit at least those in the last year. And ultimately, then the responsibility lies with these managers of the various basic and tertiary institutions to enable those who are at the last year of writing either the BEC or the WASI to be admitted back in school. What the assurance would be then is to give the comfort to the teachers, the managers, and the heads of these institutions, and also the allied staff who work in administration, who would need to be in these schools, that they will be comfortable based on testing that will be undertaken, and then also the provision of the right sort of incentives, the Veronica buckets, the means by which you can wash your hands under running water with soap, and of course the resourceable water, or the provision of sanitizers. I also had some interaction with some of these educational stakeholders or education, and they did say that testing the teachers alone would not be enough, because the students also then would have to be provided some sort of defenses, because they're coming from homes differently with their parents and guardians, or living in communities. So it means that if you know you want to test the teachers, would then the question be that should apply to the students? And I think that it will be a fair question for the teachers to ask.
On the back of that, the NATS General Secretary indicated that they have recommended that students who are not boarding students should come into the boarding house, because right now it's just the final year students. So as the final year students are coming in, the proposal is that you should have them, all of them, come and stay at one place so that they can be monitored, etc., whilst they learn. We'll see what guidelines the minister provides when he mounts the pulpit. But I have some messages here. I don't know if I can go through them.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Sir says, good morning. Please, my view on the discussion. It says teachers are ever ready to go to work, especially to get the candidates ready. But in as much as we think about the candidates, our lives should also be considered, especially those of us at the rural areas. Many a time, teachers and pupils at the rural areas are ignored when certain things are being distributed. Meanwhile, we are all a part of the country. Please, teachers want to go to work, but should be provided with all the necessary items listed by government first. Selina Beidu sent that from Commander in the Central Region. Selina, you make a very good point there. Good morning. My view on the discussions. Okay, I think I was just... Wait. This one says, are we going to touch children's exercise? Are we going to touch children's exercise books to mark? If yes, then both teachers and pupils will be infected through touching of exercise books. David from Odumase Krobo sent that message. And pardon me if my voice is not as clear. You know, as we're getting closer to each other, me and Roland, we're having to put on our masks. And so pardon me if my voice is not as clear. As I read some of your messages, Roland, maybe you should take some of the messages so that I can adjust my... Right.
Okay, please adjust your mask. It's important that we do that. And I have many of them continuing from where Gifty left off. And you also say that, well, we want to know, and you're asking the question from Cape Coast. He said, I want to know what will be done for final year students. Have you read this question already? And if a final year student has contracted the virus, will the person be exempted from taking part or taking part in the examination?
That's a very good
I want
question.
to know, because issues like this could pop up. I guess these are questions that we can have our representatives also get to ask at the news conference or the interaction. Good morning. Please help me with this problem. Those who have registered for licensure research examinations in March 2020 could not write due to COVID-19. Please, what is the way forward? And this from Abraham Boateng from the Ashanti Regional Capital of Kumasi. Also asking a question is related to the issues of education at the final year level. At what point in time should parents also be tested when they are bringing their awards to the schools? It's a very important question, though, I think so. So parents will be bringing, especially for many of the top schools, the parents bring them that be omomankolano emfrokano driven to the school. So it's a big question that we all need to ask. Are we putting in place enough measures of social distancing in these institutions so that when children go there, they will feel safe? And this is from Amaji from Kaswa. But just to also abreast ourselves of the latest case count before we continue with the related discussions on this, before we link live to that press conference at the Ministry of Information. Our case count currently is 8,070 cases. We've had 2,947 recoveries and 36 fatalities or deaths. But you take all this out of this 8,000, what you're going to get being the active cases, and this is well also segmented, well put in graphics at the side, the COVID size for the Ghana Health Service. So we have active cases 5,087, and out of the total population that has been tested so far, we have active cases 5,087, and Greater Accra is still leading the pack with some 5,616 cases. We go to the Ashanti region with 1,247. The Western region has 421. The Central region has 404. The Eastern region has 117. The Volta region has 76 cases. The Western region has 68. Northern region 37. We also do have for OT region and the Upper East and the Upper West region 36 and 26, 26, 22 respectively. The Bono East 6, the Northeast region 2, Savannah region 1, the Bono region has 1, and it is only the Ahafo region which hasn't recorded in a case at all, 0 or zilch as it is. And
I hope that it remains so. Initially we had about 3 or so regions that didn't have the case, and we're all excited, we're all hopeful that none of the regions will record. And then we had Bono, then Bono East came, and now Ahafo is the only region standing. If you live in that area, you want to keep yourself protected so that you don't become a part of the statistics, my opinion. Roland, talking about the schools, you know, a lot of people have been commenting also on your interview with Dr. Shrebo Kweku, and it has everything to do with COVID-19. Yeah, exactly. The question people are asking is, you know, sometimes the registration centers are set up in schools. How will that pan out? I mean, with the schools now expected to go back on 22nd, some of them expected to go back on 22nd, will there still be centers in schools, or how will this exercise be? Did he mention any of this?
Yes, on the sidelines of this, not in camera. What he did say was that they don't use the classrooms for the registration. They do use the compounds of the schools. And because spacing will be done just to respect social distancing and the protocols per what the advice has been, they have comprehensively had a lot of discussions with not only the experts on the COVID team, but generally as committees with the Ghana Police Service, the various security agencies, and then the National COVID team and the Ghana Health Service. So it doesn't mean that coterminously or they can use the facilities at the same time. But we also do know that in schools that have been designated, because it's not all schools that usually are designated as polling stations or as registration centers in communities. Indeed, if you go to each constituency, there are many public schools, but they decide to choose specific schools for that. And he said that schools especially with large compounds. Those are the schools that usually are being used for this. And a school that is being used definitely will not house final year students. Definitely.
Okay. Well, good morning, he says. Please, I follow the interview you had with Dr. Sribo Kweku. It's really deep and insightful. I have a question. I gather that the voters registration is scheduled to span within a specific duration. We are equally aware that we are in a rainy season. How will the people go about the registration? Should it rain for more than 2 days continuously? Seriously, I'm looking at places like Azim, Takwa, etc. And thank you for mentioning Takwa. I have a few shout-outs to do to Takwa. But answer the question if you have any answers.
Yeah, so this is what he did say, because we asked a question, what if there are periods when the exercise will have to extend, and it's the reason why they are undertaking the pilot. You know that these machines or the systems are being deployed for the first time, and there were concerns that were raised by Imani, Bright Simmons, and the rest of civil society, and even the NDC and the rest of the parties about how functionality and success rates of newly deployed machinery or technology are pegged at by way of the percentage levels. And he did say this pilot will give them a certain indication as to what extent they can deploy these machines. Indeed, he says about 8,000, just in excess of these machines have been deployed. Okay, now 6,000 and a little in excess will be used for the exercise, and the rest of a little over 1,000 will be used as backups. They will be stationed at the various offices of the Electoral Commission, where there will be any problems at all, i.e. whether there are weather problems or perhaps machinery or energy generational issues, they could have extensions for the day for registration. But the registration, they believe, based on how they are doing the spacing out in the various registration areas or stations, should be able to be accommodated within the number of days that they said they would, or 6 days.
Well, if you are a teacher today, we want to hear from you. Send us a message about your thoughts and about your concerns, the concerns that you may have concerning, going back to school on the 22nd. Some of you have already been sending in. I have Abu Sufyan. Oh, I said I was going to do a shout out. For those in Takwa, those of you who are texting from Takwa, thank you for sending in your messages. And I say shout outs to all of you in Takwa, all my friends in Takwa, MC Nana K. This is my time, Roland. MC Nana K and all of the, I've forgotten the other names. I'll get it. Yes, and Tafik Bonta, you are watching as well. You're not in Takwa. Thanks for watching the AM show. Abu Sufyan writes, as a teacher in a senior high school, I'm unable to fathom the feasibility of the President's directives in regards to the observation of social distancing protocols in various boarding houses. Obviously, the President doesn't understand the practical issues when it comes to life in the boarding house in a typical Ghanaian SHS. The stumper is that there are no enough spaces for the hanging of clothes, towels, handkerchiefs, etc. in the dormitories. You go on to say, You go on to say that consequently, students don't find it wrong to put on the underwears of others. Really? Females' pants and male boxer shorts have always been missing at the boarding houses. Girls steal the underpants of other girls without considering the health implications. Boys steal boxer shorts of other boys, regardless of whether or not they have been used. Housemasters have always been engaged in the resolution of issues related to the stealing of braziers, female panties, male boxer shorts, handkerchiefs, and so on. It's a very long message you sent. Let me see if I can wrap it up. Okay. He actually has a intro, body, and conclusion.
Wow. That's like a well thought out essay. And
yes, it is. So at this point, I hope you formed your own mental picture of how the students will hang their things in the schools. Conclusion. The President and his cohort of advisors on education, by the directive for the final years to go back to school, have done more harm than good.
Well, that's just an opinion. But the thing is, we also have to take this into our thoughts. We're not living like we used to live before. So that is why the education is being done side by side or simultaneously.
Okay.
So it means that if student, and what he or she paints, means that used to dry their things or behave in a certain way, they would have to change. And it's a responsibility of the various managers or administrators of the schools to do that. because they are the caretakers of the students when they land on campus. And it's important that that education drills. And the only difficulty I think that we all have observed with all this is the fact that when the National Cover Team propagates or disseminates this type of information, we don't see it being drilled down to the local level.
Yeah.
So we're told that we're supposed to be having people wearing face masks, etc. But I go to my community and people are not wearing face masks.
Yeah.
They are not washing their hands. They are speaking to each other face to face, side by side, which we all do know is against the protocols prescribed by the World Health Organizations because it's been adopted by our own Ghana Health Service. So it's a concern everybody needs to have. But the educational institutions, the heads of those institutions have the responsibility to do that. It's just an opinion I share.
Yeah, I guess these questions are coming up. They're all relevant questions that we ought to now address as we go. We look forward to going back to school. So really, a lot of people are looking forward to hearing from the ministry on what the plan is. This one says he's also a teacher. Frimpong Hamid, texting from Ekonfi Otom. Says, as a teacher, I want to know how true it is when they say teachers will be accommodated. When will all teachers across the country enjoy this accommodation package? I haven't heard of any accommodation package, have you?
Well, no, that announcement will be made.
Yeah,
anyway, so.
I spoke to the NAT secretary, by the way, the general secretary. He said that they had a proposal for some incentives for teachers. He wouldn't tell me what's in the proposal because he says they are now going to discuss it today with the minister. So I doubt that the minister will go into details.
Have a certain finality or conclusion for them.
Because he says the proposal has yet to be discussed with the ministry, which is one of the things that they want to do today. So if you are a teacher and you're looking forward to that, maybe you want to engage your executives, the executives of the various teacher unions, you want to engage them and find out what proposals they pushed to the ministry and then what response they got on the back of it. But I haven't heard of any housing incentives.
A COVID housing scheme.
That's what he's saying.
To house them temporarily because of COVID.
I guess so that teachers also who are coming to school are not like bringing things from outside into the school, and they are not taking things from the school. So not
putting the students at risk.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
It does. So if you can house all of them at a particular place, especially since they are final year student, you're just there for a period. Between when you prepare them and when they write the exams, the expectation is that you don't go in and out too much. Okay.
Perhaps also our director is saying that we should again open the phone lines and then get the expectations of ordinary people about what they think about the current state. But before we do that, Gifty will have to speak to microbiologists. Also has worked extensively within the period and currently is with the University of Cape Coast. Dr. Samuel Esiembedu is online. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Roland.
Yes, sir. And importantly, we know the address today is going to also focus on the way forward for schools to reopen partially, because according to the President's address, at least schools at all levels should have final year students coming to school to complete their exit examinations. What will be your own experiential caution to them in the first place?
Thank you so much, Roland. I think that the discussion has been ongoing for some time now about the need to observe the protocols so we can gradually ease the restrictions and get life back to the new normal. For students who are returning to school, I think that the first thing that needs to be done is to, first of all, screen all of them. Everybody that is coming back to school should be screened, contact taking, and all of that. I would also recommend that we look at, for instance, in the case of the universities and then the secondary school, we need to relook at housing, accommodation, transport for these students. Again, we need to look at the numbers that are going to come in and then how we can distribute the numbers according to the facilities that are available. If there will be the need for extra facilities outside the main campuses, this should be verifiable by the authorities and some security measures put in place to make sure that such people are properly housed and properly monitored in terms of their movement. Again, we should remember that these students are likely to go into town and mingle with the population out there. So we should ensure that they are wearing the mask, they're washing their hands, and they're keeping the physical distance as well. I think once we're able to put these things in place, we should be able to deal with the numbers properly that are coming back to school.
There are questions that have come in about if, let's say, we have teachers who are out of school or off campus, so to speak, in a very situational sense, but are going to interact and teach a student at a designated point, at a stationary facility or campus. What should be the caution, but what are the fears?
So I think for teachers who are going to come from elsewhere, this should be pretty simple. You need to make sure that they observe all the protocols. So they're wearing their mask at all times whilst interacting with the students. Make sure that hand washing is done regularly. The use of the sanitizer is also properly done and all of that. So you can conveniently come in and out whilst you observe these protocols. I'm not sure it should be difficult. I mean, we still have people moving into town, into marketplaces and all of that. So it shouldn't be a problem if they are strictly adhering to the tenets of the COVID-19 protocols.
And some have suggested that the teachers should be housed. Is that a suggestion you would side with?
Not necessarily. I don't think the teachers should be housed. That may not be necessary because as we speak, I mean, people leave their homes to work, and they do that easily. They commute through public transport, they go to work and come back. Churches are going to open. People will leave their homes and go to church and come back home and all of that. I think that what is important is the education bit, to make sure that these teachers adhere strictly to the protocols that have been laid down. So compulsorily, you should wear your mask, you should wash your hands, you should use a hand sanitizer, you should make sure that you practice the physical distance or social distance, and we should be good to go. Housing teachers may come with added cost and complications, and again, what it means is that you're going to take them away from their families, which may also bring up some psychological distress on they themselves, their families as well. So we need to allow ourselves to adapt and ease gradually into the lockdown. Basically, once we're able to do that, I am sure we should be fine.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't a mistake. You didn't say the lockdown.
Sorry. The restriction is the restriction.
Right. I get it. But then the issue is that I just spoke to NAT a while ago. The NAT has indicated that they are recommending that students who are day students be brought into the boarding houses so that all of them are at one place. The idea is that they are just preparing to write the exams anyway, so they just finish the exam and they go. So wouldn't it be good for the teachers then to also be at the same place so that after the exams, when the exam starts, after the exams, they can go back whilst we sort things out gradually? For students who are day students, again, if you look at where most of these day students stay, the sanitary conditions that are available or that pertain to some of these areas are a bit worrying and all of that. I very much agree that day students should be housed, but again, this should also be based on the availability of space. For instance, if you don't have dormitory facilities for day students, you can't put a lot of people together in the same room.
Now, if you have enough space to put all the students back on campus, that would be excellent. But for the teachers, I am not sure we should worry so much about bringing them all to campus. They still can come from their homes while they observe all these protocols, and we should be fine with that.
And they're asking, they say they are teachers, and the question they're asking is, what about marking the books of students? We have to mark their books, mark their work, and there'll be books, there'll be pens going around, all of that. Is there a risk there?
I think that we need to adapt to this new normal. Marking can be done by the students themselves. For instance, if you give an exercise, you give a time period for the exercise to be completed, you can give whatever solution you have and then ask the students themselves to mark their own work honestly, because you're preparing them for exams. So if, let's say, I give you a mathematical assignment and then you completed that assignment, and then I provide the solution. So if you have this, score 1, if you have this, score 2, if you have that, score 3. We can encourage the students themselves to mark. We don't necessarily have to mark all the books. So I think that we need to adapt to some of these things. We need to change some of these modus operandi in terms of how we engage the students. This is not the time to give exercises, collect them, sit down to mark and all of that. You can give the exercises, you can go through the solutions with the students, and you can help them identify where there are lapses so that they can correct them. And once you're able to do that, we should be good to go.
Well, it's good that you are the expert and you have been in the field. Now, I'm reading this from the Washington Post. And it says, although hundreds of schools have begun the process of reopening last month in South Korea, many have since closed down again due to a spike in coronavirus cases.
Okay. Yes, Roland, I think that in the president's speech, he did mention that the state is aware of some of these things and the likelihood that we may have people becoming infected and all of that. So some measures have been put in place to make sure that this does not happen. I think that our biggest challenge is with space and how we can prevent the overcrowding situations that we see on our campuses all the time. Once we will be able to manage the spaces on campus properly, I am sure we should be good to go. Again, the reason why it will be important to bring all the students together is to put some level of restriction on how they move, where they move to, who they interact with, who they associate with, so that contact tracing can become a lot more easier when you're dealing with them. Right? And I think that it is important that we also look at trying to innovate, particularly during this time. We may not have the necessary, teaching timetable or like we had previously and all of that. We may not have teaching being done in the same manner like we used to. So these are things that we need to look at, particularly in terms of the period where they're going to stay with us on campus. We need to make sure that we keep an eye on everybody that is coming in and going out. That is why it will be difficult allowing the day students to live at home. That is why it will be important to bring them on campus so that we can easily monitor, contact trace if there is anything.
Right, and I continue, and just so you don't you don't say I'm only reading from one source. I go to the BBC, and they say some 58, and this as of Friday, this is some 58 new cases were recorded on Friday, bringing total number of cases nationwide to 11,000. Now, it says a total of 251 schools in Bocheon have now been forced to close again. The latest infection was from a parent who infected her child. The mother worked at a warehouse and had been found to have been infected. You are the expert.
Yes, Roland. I mean, this is a likelihood. I mean, this is something. It's a likelihood. This is something that may happen. It's something that can happen. For the secondary schools and then the universities, we're not likely to have this kind of situation. But at the JHS level, where the students may be allowed to go back home, mingle with other people, other family members, and come back in, that is where I foresee some kind of some kind of difficulty in that regard.
Okay, so but, Dr. Samuel Esembiedu, let me ask you this: if South Korea has these problems, how less Ghana?
I think our strategy so far has been really good. We need to acknowledge the fact that Ghana strategically has dealt very well with this COVID situation. I am sure that one of the things we have been on top with is how well we've done contact tracing and being able to identify and isolate people quickly when we diagnose or when we find that they have become infected. South Korea, other countries may have this second wave of infections because probably the protocols that we have put in place, they did not start that from the onset. I think that our contact tracers have become very experienced now. They are all over the place. We should be okay doing what we have done in the past 3 months.
If I hear what you're saying, teachers should not be so worried, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
I asked that because of the message that I have here. It says, good morning. As a teacher in a village, I'm not worried about this directive to go back to school because I know my students have not traveled a lot from their village. But I need Veronica buckets, liquid soap, face mask, and one whiteboard to divide my class into two groups, and learning and teaching goes on. From Kojohampong in Wasa and Yinabrim, I only fear for teachers in our SHS. So once the teachers have the things that this person has mentioned in the list, from your expert perspective, we're good to go.
Yes, I mean, we should be providing these things. These are basic things that the teachers need. And so we need to make sure that there is available Veronica bucket, running water, again, that kind of break system where it's break time and everybody goes out to play or to eat, to buy food, and all of that is not what we should be expecting, particularly around this time. We could do it such that a cohort or a group of students would go out at a particular time and then come back in, another group will go out and come back in, another group will go out and come back in, and minimize the extent of contact between them. But these things are basic. These things should be provided. Hand sanitizer, face mask, washing, the Veronica bucket, and all of that. These things should be provided appropriately.
Dr. Samuel Esembiedu, and Dr. Samuel Esembiedu is a microbiologist and helping over the period with some of the cases, and had been very instrumental also in helping us with some great analysis and preferring some great solutions based on his opinion and expertise. He's also with the University of Cape Coast. But in the meantime, we also would have to tell you, make sure you get interactive with Facebook, Joy News on TV. We have a Twitter handle at Joy News on TV. You can get all the news that we produce here, not only on Joy News, but also Joy FM, the rest of the multimedia channels or subsidiaries aggregated on myjoyonline.com. Go, subscribe, follow us on our YouTube as well as social media platforms, and then you get all those notifications. Gifty.
I still have some messages here. It's good to hear from teachers. I think I'm getting more and more of the messages from us teachers out there. This one is called Teacher Kofi Nia from Takwa. I mean, I like it when I hear from Takwa. Takwa, we're told by the by the Ghana Health Service was becoming, and Second we're becoming the epicenter in the Western region. It looks like for the past few days we haven't really heard anything from Takwa, so it looks to me as if things are getting under control there. So for all of you, yes, I remember the name Kobe Hazard at Ajimpa FM. All of you there, be taking care of yourself. We understand that the information minister is speaking. Let's go there right now.